All right. I think we're live.
Awesome. Good morning, Matt.
Yeah. Good morning, Abe. Big bet on Hulu. Is that
Yes, sir.
that's a show you like?
Love it. Yeah, I love it right now. Uh, It's
Got it. Got it.
yeah, it's definitely a I don't get to watch a lot of shows these days. I think primarily because of the kids, but and usually I'm watching on my phone versus like the TV we have, right?
Right. Right.
But yeah, this one honestly is pretty good. If you like gangster movies, you like uh you know like political like corruption and how it leads to gang activity and
Love political
the,
corruption
yeah but good
in a
solid
show. Yeah.
characters,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
that are
Yeah. Yeah.
gangsters, this one's a good
Nice.
one. A lot of people recommend it, but it's really good. I actually suggested it to someone who's Filipino because it's set in the Philippines, and Justin, who I spoke to about it, said, "Hey, this is actually pretty
Oh yeah.
accurate in terms of how the Philippines and governance sometimes can be." And so, but it's a Korean
Oh, got
drama.
it.
It's a Korean drama.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, so okay, so we have a good, I think, topics today to talk about. We're going to talk about relationships and networking, whether you want to call it networking or not. We're going to talk about the um, clear cooperation policy, and that's Inman was this week in Las Vegas, and there was some discussion of that and some of the pitfalls, and then maybe some other topics around that, and then talking about the what's the last topic here? It's the um,
Interstate
where are we
agent.
going? Interstate agent, right? And what that means for agents that cross state lines, do business in more than one state, and what that means for the future. Um, but yeah, so relationships. So we've been talking a lot about this week. We've been talking about the book, what Never Eat Alone, right? A little bit with some of the staff, some of the other agents, and I think that it sort of with forefront on our minds anyhow this year, as far as just this is the year to sort of double down on building deeper relationships, taking the time, slowing down, and really taking stock of and maybe taking stock's the wrong word based on the fact that we're not trying to keep score, right? We're not trying to put a value to these other than just building deeper relationships with people, right? So, um, but then that's a lot what you've been talking about with me this week, right?
Yeah, it's one of those topics, networking, that when I hear the word, like you cringe for some reason. You're not. I don't know. Something about the word makes me feel uncomfortable because it feels like something that's like, I don't know, almost like not genuine, right? Or not authentic.
Right.
It feels like you're doing something and kind of schmoozing in some way so that you can get whatever you're trying to get. So for that reason, whenever I heard the word or heard like, hey, there's a seminar coming up on networking or an event about networking, I always just like, man, I don't know. And so I've kind of allergically stayed away from some of that stuff, and even
Right.
talking about in that sense. But given these times, and even me just trying to get better at what I do and understand a little bit better what I'm doing, what I need to be better at. Um, I picked up a book, that Keith Ferrazzi book, Never Eat Alone, and it's the first time, especially in the first part of the book, where I've heard someone talk about it in a way that, yeah, you're thinking about how to hone your craft and get better at relationships, but also not forget the principles, right? And so there's a lot of things in that book that are great. Um, so I recommend it to everyone, but I think I boil it down kind of in this way. It's just, I think when I think about networking, it's always just been, hey, like, be a good friend. like, like that's really what it boils down to, is like, make friends, be a good friend.
Right.
And that there's a period at the end of that, right? Not so that you can do this or get this or grow your business this way or whatnot. But I think that's just been kind of our ethic, right? Or part of our character. And so, and I know you share that as well. It's kind of one of those awkward things, but definitely something we can get better at, something we can hone and understand and then feel comfortable about, because we know where we stand on it, and we
Right.
know um, how we feel about it, and also like just be very clean and clear about what we're doing.
Yeah, well, I think that it reminds me of there's a I think it's in Buddhist. I don't know. I think I heard it first through like a Jack Kerouac book, but the concept of being charitable without the concept of charity, like being able to be charitable without knowing you're being charitable, right? Because then it's pure. And I think that's where it kind of comes into is that, you know, if you are networking for the sake of personal gain, and that's what you're thinking when you're networking out there, and you're thinking because the idea of networking, right, in business, when we talk about it, and that's why it is basically building relationships for business gain, right? Like to gain something through building relationships. And I think that's where the mistake, goes where it goes wrong. And I think a lot of people instinctively kind of get that. They feel like there has to be some sort of outcome attached to building these relationships. And then that's what also makes them that fear of rejection, a fear of kind of, hey, I don't know if I could do that. Maybe something doesn't sit with them well. Like they feel like they're doing that and it doesn't feel. So a lot of people that are actually great friends and great relationship people don't like networking because they feel like it's tainted. It's not real. It's not genuine in that sense. And I think that we're such a tactic driven industry, right? In real estate, it's always this tactic, that tactic. Here's how you do this. Here's how you do that. And I think it's like the other school of thought that we also hear, but I think gets drowned out often is who you become, right? By being in this industry, like the person you become. And I think that attracts things. So I think if you become a person who just builds relationships, not just for business, but for life, for everything, that you just become, like you said, a good friend to people and you're always open to new friendships and open to doing friend like things because it's the nice generous thing to do, the human thing to do, right? Then yeah, you'll attract business, but you'll attract a lot of things in life. You'll attract good relationships, you'll attract people also that are generous, people that like to help others. And so I think that's where that people need to refocus, right? Is not that tactical way of building relationships, but just go make friends and be a good friend to people when you do it, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, totally. And there's a part in the book that also talks about being someone who connects people, uh,
right,
and freely, like, kind of connects people without thinking, oh man, like, am I giving someone uh, like like I don't know, someone like a relationship that I really treasure, and they're gonna like make out on that relationship better than I am, or something like that, right?
right, right.
Um, so it's a weird way to live, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
well,
it's challenging, you know.
yeah, well, there's that one story in there where I think the guy's going to Hollywood to meet a guy that he was connected through from like a friend from college, and the guy tells him in the meeting, like, "Yeah, I know someone I could connect you with, but I can't do it because I sort of have I'm saving the favor with that person for something
Right.
for myself. So if I connect you guys, I'm using that favor I feel like I have with that person to connect you." And it was like, I think the cautionary tale was this guy kind of ended up the guy in Hollywood that said that basically didn't do very well in his career. And he was saying because it's a muscle that you have to use. You can't just go, oh, I'm gonna wait till the right moment. It's like no, like it's a scarcity type thinking. It's a keeping score type thinking. And it's like no, just go out there, connect people. Don't think about favors or if I owe you. Because if you connect one person, it goes well. Well, guess what? They're going to let you connect another person, right? So you've got to take those chances and connect people and be known as a connector, and people will always come to you. Um, so I like that because I think a lot of people
Yeah.
think that way. It's like, hey, I don't want to blow my in by my one chance to kind of get in with this person on something small, right? That's not going to help me, and that's that kind of selfish, non-friend type thinking. Um,
Totally, totally. I take a lesson from on that from a good friend of mine, actually, Carrie, out in Nevada. Shout out to Carrie. Yeah, he is a person that just genuinely loves to connect good people. Right? It's, hey, I met this person who's super awesome. You guys have the same vibe.
right,
I don't know where it's going to go, but just wanted to put you guys together and just connect you. Like he's great
right,
at that.
right,
And I've learned a lot from that. Again, I don't know why, but I feel like, hey, for some reason you guys should meet and just know each other. And there is no agenda there. There's no, plan or some, I don't know, non-circumvent agreement with a fee attached to it, right? So that you
right,
guys,
right.
I'm going to get something. No, it's just, hey, just connect, and it's all good, right? So, so yeah, it's definitely a challenging read. I think it's an interesting way to put to words what you've already felt in some ways, and maybe some also hesitations as to why you would become like a networker, right, or
Right.
work on your networking game. So I highly recommend it, and it's something we all can work on. And it's weird, Inman just happened right now, and we read an article from Inman, and it was actually Robert Refkin, right, talking
Right.
about. I think it was more like in the context of like people going back to the office and working in the office, and how remote work is not where it's at anymore, right, and that you need to be like
Right.
highly like kind of in person, right, with people. Um, the takeaway I took from there was from that article. He had some good takes, but the one that I thought was really interesting was that the key to success is to become more human, right? And I thought it was an interesting comment because it feels like we're in an era of like AI technology, right?
Right.
So much happens via technology. There's so much weight given to technology that, in some ways, even me, who's now kind of enters midlife in his 40s, feel like, hey, I'm not on the TikTok, right? Like, am I falling behind here?
Right.
Um, yeah, the TikTok, right? I'm slow on Instagram.
TikTok.
I'm old now. I'm not like irrelevant, right? And we even talked about Facebook yesterday and how that's just there's this thing there that feels like it's kind of the older platform. We know that, right? Um,
Right.
so then the temptation is like, hey, let's double down and just like go on TikTok, right? Let's be let's be in with the cool kids, right? And learn about technology and stay up on it. Um, but I thought that comment that he made was interesting because I do still feel the sense that, hey, technology should never get in the way of us connecting and being human, right, with one
Right.
another,
Right.
and looking at life through the lens of humanity versus technology, right?
Right.
And that really technology is there to help us connect, right? And should be a
Right.
tool for that rather than the end all be all, right? Um,
Right.
so yes,
And
I
that's
thought that
where,
was
yeah.
interesting.
No, absolutely, and I think that's where like the CRM aspect of it, that the technology of a CRM, right? It's scary to so many people. It's almost hopeless for so many people who've tried using CRMs and things like that. And I think that a lot of people want a CRM to do things that are automated or less human. But the idea of the CRM is actually to allow you to be to connect with more humans, right? To organize those relationships, similar to like a calendar app organizes your meetings, but it doesn't do the meeting for you. It doesn't automate to make the meeting any better. It doesn't. It just makes sure you don't miss meetings. I mean, there were agents not too long ago that still, maybe some even now, that aren't using a calendar app even. And I'm thinking, like, how do you live with like that? Because you should calendar everything, because you never know there's gonna be conflict and you have to remember everything. So the point is the same thing with CRM. You can't remember every relationship all the time, and it's a great way to jog. Like, hey, oh yeah, I haven't talked to this person in a while. I got to, and not again, not in a tactical way, but just like it reminds you that there's these people out there. Similar to social media reminds us that there's people out there. We see a post from someone we haven't talked to in a long time, and we go, hey, I should give them a call. It's good to see them, right? So the point is, it's like it's just managing your relationships, but it doesn't have to dehumanize anything, right? It doesn't have to become an automated. It's just there to make you actually better at building more and deeper relationships, right? So, um, and what was interesting about the Refkin take was, I think that ironically, I think that the sort of the gist of what he was talking about was like get back to the office. And I think that obviously he's invested in offices. He needs to help people, tell people to come back to the office. And there's obviously companies that are with no offices now that he's competing with. But I do think that when I was well, sorry, when we were really an office culture, like everybody's in the office all the time, the line to the brokers who tell agents is like, hey, don't be in here. No one here is going to buy a house from you. Go out there and go build relationships. Go talk to people. So I think that the mixed message there is really that people should be out there building relationships, not in the office, right? Yeah, you shouldn't be on Zooms with people. You shouldn't be texting people. You should be getting face to face lunches, coffees, dinners, just getting with people, and that's where you build relationships for sure, better than like Zoom and closer relationships. But I think it's like being in the office. I don't know if that's the logical next step. I think it's being out of the office actually that helps build relationships. Um, but
Yeah,
anyhow, I
totally.
guess
Yeah, I think all
yeah,
that is like the like it helps us with our intention, right? To build relationships, and it keeps us intentional with it, right? CRMs and all that as well. Like, maintaining relationships takes work. It actually takes work, right? It's not always just like, oh, I want to do this and do
Right.
that, right? It's kind of not the highest way to function. It does take work to maintain relationships, and so these things help you stay on the work that needs to get done to maintain good relationships, and keep keep bonds strong in that sense. Um, yeah, and
Yeah.
I yeah, I think going back to the office, same thing. Like, um, yeah, as a producer, maybe you don't need to be in the office as much, right? You do need to be in front of people, but I do think, I think, like you said, nothing fully takes away the value you get from being in front of people, right? And connecting with
Absolutely. Yeah.
people in
And
person.
yeah. And I think we should be in the office. I think that we should have office time with each other. I think we should have events with each other. I think that the building relationships within the brokerage are important, with us, with our agents, with agents, with each other, having colleagues that you can, learn from and share your experience with. And so there's definitely that for sure. I'm a big proponent of having places of gathering for agents in our offices. And I just think it's the idea is that still agents should be out there building relationships all the time and always doing, popping by places, building new relationships, but authentically. Um, and one thing I wanted to bring up, just when I was on vacation, I saw this article come through, and I was with my father-in-law at the time, and I shared it with him. But I just want to add this. Speaking of humanity, right? this is
Mhm.
this is an Inman article, but Tori Spelling, I guess, of 90210 fame and other things, and but essentially, I guess her family, there was some mold in her home, and so and her kids were having some health issues because of it. So she needed to find a place temporarily to move into, and the agent that she was reaching out to, if you can see this, accidentally texted her kind of a snarky comment that was intended for a colleague of his, but he actually sent it to Tori Spelling herself. So she's like, "Oh, this is Tori Spelling. Wow, human empathy and kindness prevails, right?" So the thing here is, like, this is what we talk about, like, with the becoming part, right? Is the fact that, you know, um, it's not that it's who that person is that they think that way, right? And it's like that's the becoming part. If that's your takeaway from someone, and you're just making fun or belittling things, right? That's where you're not building a relationship. That was a huge opportunity to build a relationship with someone that was, pretty significant, and it's and they blew it because they didn't have that humanity about the situation, and they were being snarky and arrogant, right? Maybe that's at least what this claims. And so I think it's and I just happened to be my father-in-law who works in high-end luxury retail. I thought, hey, is this still around? Are people in luxury still being snarky, kind of like that cliche type thing from like Pretty Woman, right? Where they're being rude to people. And I see the arrogance sometimes in people and that sort of thing. But I think that's that kind of defense mechanism of people that don't understand. And by the way, his comment to me was like, no, that's not, I don't see that anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's, luckily we're kind of beyond that. And I was happy to hear that. But in the luxury world, sometimes in real estate, you see these reality shows, and sometimes there is this kind of snarky, arrogant, because I think it sells, right? It sells to be that way. But I do think that's where, someone like Jordan Cohen, who we were talking about, who's like a really great agent, comes off like a very straightforward guy with humility, doesn't have that kind of arrogance, confident, knows what he's talking about, assertive in what he says, but he's not, doesn't seem like there's that kind of arrogance or snark. It sounds like he sees the humanity in the relationships with these high-end individuals he deals with, right? He sells like celebrities, power players in the sports industry, you know, business people. I mean, he sells some pretty high-end homes. And so I think but that's the kind of way to go about it, right? That's why he's so successful. And I think that's where, that temptation. So I thought that was interesting about just like, we're kind of coming to terms in this real estate industry of like, maybe we need to find our humanity, be more human. It's sort of, things sort of start all coming out the same, kind of culminating in a kind of zeitgeist of where we are, right? So, um, but what
Yeah,
are your
hundred
thoughts on that?
percent. Yeah, I just it is. I mean, we're in a service industry, right? A lot of us are
Right.
people who are in the retail business are also in the service industry. So it is kind of appalling sometimes when you walk into, like, let's say, a luxury goods store, and you feel like they're looking down on you, right? Which is weird.
Right.
They're there to help you and service you and whatnot, help you buy the product you want to go buy, right? So same thing with homes. Like we're service people,
Right.
but I think we're kind of in an age where people in our industry also are kind of like uh, uh, celebritized, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
we're on TV now, right? As agents and on shows that really kind of air out some of the drama we go through, right? Maybe in some ways, but also like really like deify agents and what they do and the power they seem to have and the ability to make deals and negotiate and be that guy or be that girl, right? That
Right.
that
Right.
wears the big pants, right? Um,
Yeah.
but ultimately, it really is a service industry, and it's weird to veer off that, right? It's always best to like underplay a hand than to overplay a hand, right? And
Right.
when you get called on your bluff when you overplay a hand, eventually, sorry, like yeah, I was bluffing, right?
Yeah.
And so I think probably the good principle for us all is to remember we're in a service industry, right? And what we do, whether it's a $300,000 condo, a $300 million mansion, or whatever it is, like we're there to service and serve, right? And
Yeah.
let's not forget that. And
Yeah.
yeah,
You'll
let's
never
stick to that
lose.
and get good at that.
Yeah, you'll never lose by being more human, right? And being more generous. And I think that's where defensiveness and insecurities come in, where people don't want to be too generous. They don't want to be taken advantage of. But if you play that hand enough times, you'll win. You'll lose
Right.
sometimes, right? But if you play the hand of generosity that's your hand you play, more times than not, you'll win. And sometimes we just remember those losses and those hurt, but you got to stick with it, I think, and that human touch, right? So, um,
Absolutely. I love
yeah,
that at Circa we have great people that understand this and really embody this without even being putting words into it or putting that into words for them. That they just naturally are that, right? And we're kind of
right,
scouring the real estate landscape for people that have that naturally, right? We can teach you real estate, right? We can teach you
right,
how to
right,
do
right,
deals, how
right.
to close deals, how to grow your business, but it's hard to kind of get someone to really critically think about this and really embody that and make it authentic for themselves. And so I again love who we work with and so glad that we have a lot of people that are just of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, I can segue to both other topics from there, both the clear cooperation as well as the interstate agent. I kind of want to talk about the interstate agent right now from that standpoint, because that's one of the things that we're looking at, right? Is how do we find, at these early stages of the business of the company, is to find those early adopters of the Circa kind of way in different locales throughout the United States that we feel are cities that almost like sister cities, or so to speak, of where people from California can go and people from there can come here to find their lifestyle, right? Because that's the whole idea, is that we believe real estate really ultimately leads to your lifestyle, right? And that's what we sell, as the lifestyle of where you center your life, right? And that could be for people with kids, schools, for people who are in business, relationship opportunities, like people, like-minded people they can be around and grow their group and their tribe, right? So whatever it might be for people, where you kind of, I do believe that we can work from anywhere. A lot of times now we can definitely live anywhere because of that. But at the same time, there is a certain physical component of where you live, where you go to eat, where you go to grab coffee, where you go to the gym, all those type of things, matter. But anyway, that being said, going to other states in those areas, one of the things we're coming up with, that there's agents who work in multiple states themselves, right? There's agents that we're coming across more and more who are practicing in more than one state. And so I think it's a growing trend. I think it makes sense for some people. And so, yeah, what are your thoughts on that, as far as how that's shaping kind of the way we're thinking, that we're not thinking just local anymore. We're thinking maybe still local in how we practice, but not that we're stuck in this one locale, that we can, go other places and do business.
Yeah, it there's like an intuitive sense that this is right? To become interstate or even like um like multinational in some ways too.
Right.
is right, right? We're in a environment right now where the world has become smaller through technology, right? We know much more now. We have so much information from all parts of the world that we can draw from, and so our community is becoming bigger in that sense, the global community now. And so there's something intuitive about, hey, you kind of have to step outside um, your own locale, right, to be able to optimize yourself, your business, right?
Right, right.
And so I think it's happening, and I don't know if some of the forces that are driving it are that, hey, there's not a lot of deals going on as years before, right? There's a percent we're
Hmm.
down, in
Right.
terms of percentage of how many deals are happening, and so we have to go and adjust and adapt, right? So that might be one of the forces. But what I want to say about this is we don't want it to be a distraction either, right? Um, uh,
Right.
there's probably some balance there where, yes, you're an expert in where you live and where you've grown up and whatnot, but you can probably become an expert also and speak to clients and add value to clients about other places as well, right? Maybe not like 40 other places, but I wonder if there's like one or two or three places where you might be able to call yourself an expert in, right? And so
Right.
one of our agents, she's kind of tri-area right now, right? She's that Lake Tahoe area on the California side. It has a Nevada component there too, and then also
Right.
Austin, Texas, right? And I get the sense that yes, she is a mover and shaker in all three areas, right? She has
Right.
the networks, she has the like local know-how and kind of like the local lifestyle down in all three areas. And so it absolutely makes sense for her to get licensed in those three states and start to do business in those three areas. And so I imagine more and more agents will move that way. And for that reason, precisely, we're doing these cultural connect trips, right? So that
Right.
we as a brokerage get exposed a little bit more to where the movement of people are happening outside of California. Places
Right.
like Austin, Texas, places like Nashville, Tennessee, right? The Carolinas, Florida. And so yeah, so I think um, what we're sensing is to be successful in the kind of newer ages, right? That you would potentially be multi-state or multi-area in that sense. We kind of do this already within our own locale, right? Agents in the past used to be like pretty hyper focused on a certain neighborhood, right?
Right. Right.
You would have to know which houses were for sale because there wasn't the technology out there to be able to look online what's for sale, right? Um,
Right. Right.
and so and so even from then we've expanded. Now people are selling all over the place, right? Within a county, within multi-county, within a state, right? I've sold property in Concord, towards Northern California and also down as far as like San Diego, the south part of San Diego, right?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
everywhere kind of in between. And so this feels like a move that's been coming.
Right. And especially since we're so relationship driven, and I think that the relationships often trump for some people, for some clients, sort of that local expertise, right? So I mean, a lot of times agents will get asked like, "Hey, can you help me buy a place over here?" And it's like they know that's not your area, but they don't care. They just want to know, can you do it? They don't say, do you know this area? They just want to work with you, and they want you to help them. And I think that's where, we talked about this a little bit last episode about like like this, it's good to have that local knowledge and local expert in some cases. But other times deals can go perfectly well and it's better for the clients, better served to feel like they have a trusted advisor that they know has a track record of serving them well, that's done a good job for them in the past, that they just know that their competency is going to allow them to avoid some of their fears that could happen, right? Or doing the wrong thing. And so, and a good professional is going to also know the limits of their knowledge and not tip over that, right? And say, hey, let's let's do a little more research here. I don't know the answer. I'll find out though, and I'll do some more research with you and work together. But yeah, I think that's where we're seeing is that there's a lifestyle component in that certain cities offer that if you know the person well and you know these options, you can actually definitely advise toward those things, right? Like you can say, hey, this city's a great city for you based on what I know about you. Knowing the person sometimes is as good as knowing the area too, maybe. Um, but yeah, so that being said, so I guess we could let's talk a little bit about um speaking of like I mean neighborhoods and someone knowing the neighborhoods and how it used to be where people are focused. A lot of that was people had pocket listings, right? People used to have like, hey, I know this home's going to sell, no one else knows. You got to come through me if you want to buy in this neighborhood because I know who's going to sell and I've got this pocket listing, right? And that sort of thing, the MLS and cooperation has been battling that type of disservice, you could say, to the seller, because we all know that basic economics, supply demand. If there's more demand, you got 30 buyers for a product versus just a 1-to-1. It better serves the seller to have 30 offers than just the one that the listing agent brings in, right? So we understand that pretty fundamentally. And so we did enact something recently called the Clear Cooperation Policy, right? And I think that there's been a lot of essentially the effects of that have been two things that have been sort of very fundamentally transformative in the industry. Is one, it's created these lawsuits, um, maybe not in full, but a lot of people give credit to the Clear Cooperation Policy for when the Justice Department said that, hey, you're violating the Antitrust Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act. And so a lot of this making agents put their listings on the MLS right away and all these kind of rigid rules around that to fight agents who were trying to keep agents away from their listings, right? So they were trying to fight, do the right thing for the consumer. But then it brought on these lawsuits to some degree where now we're considering getting rid of offering out cooperating commissions, which is kind of the sort of the cornerstone of cooperation itself, is offering to pay you to cooperate, right? That was sort of there. The other part is it's created this sort of scrutiny of our industry as being like antitrust or violating trust laws and kind of keeping things exclusive within our industry. So that's kind of brought that unwanted scrutiny. And then two, it's created like a new form of exclusive listings where brokerages are just keeping listings off the market completely and only selling it within their own brokerage, because that's one of the ways of getting around the Clear Cooperation is if you only work with your brokerage. And so brokerages are now actually creating that as a feature. So Redfin came out in Inman this week, and let me put this on here. Let's see. Let me see. There we go. So, I'm sorry, this is the old article I was going to come back to, but basically Redfin flirts with exclusive listings amid Clear Cooperation takedown. So imagine you go to Redfin, there's homes on there that you can only buy with Redfin agents. You can't, right? And you can't work with your agent, right? You can only see it through Redfin. You can only work with Redfin, and they can't cooperate because they have it as an exclusive listing. And then you've got Redfin, 2012 was fighting that sellers lose in dual agency, right? So this is like very conflicting, and I don't think they want to do it. The guy was clear; they don't want to do it. But if there's an uneven playing field and they have to do it, then maybe they will. That's why he flirts with it, because he's saying that if we're going to be forced to, because that's what everybody's doing, we might have to do it, and that would be very, again, bad for the industry, bad for sellers, bad, and the guy from Next Home actually said that we should get rid of dual agency. So what I wanted to kind of unpack here is, what do we do about the Clear Cooperation Policy? I call it the unclear in the title here, just because a lot of agents consistently ask me, hey, can I do this? Can I advertise it here but not do this? And it's very unclear to agents what they can do. And it is the swiftest and harshest penalty we have right now that I've seen for violating a rule, even if it's innocent, right? Like you didn't mean to, you weren't trying to do anything to game the system. You just made a mistake. And there's it's not a slap on the wrist. It's not a warning. It's a fine, and it's a harsh, severe fine. And I've seen cases where they've lowered it, like because it was clearly the person was doing something innocent, but they still pretty significant fine. So I think that what we're trying to figure out is, how do we fix the problem of not serving the seller well, but not doing it in such a way that it backfires like it might have. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is it's a big topic. And Yeah, I guess, you know, there's a lot of ways to look at it. And I know there's a lot, like again, like you said, a lot of corporations trying to kind of leverage the law and work within the loophole. But I do believe putting a property on the fair market is the best way to sell, right? And getting the most exposure to it gets it probably the higher price that it can get, highest price it can get, right?
Right.
Um, and so, but I understand also why people will want to keep private listings, right, or not have their place of living out there in the open, photos and all that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I can understand on that very base level. Um, I I've had personal experiences too, going back to like the dual agency thing, where we've all probably run into this at some point, but agents in a certain area that like pride themselves on dual listings and getting buyers for their listings and almost feeling like, hey, do I even have a fair shot here? I'm up against this agent who's listing
Right.
this property, and we already know his reputation or her reputation. And I remember you even telling me there was like agents out there where we attended a class and they were teaching how to be a dual, how to like get your own buyer, not waste that opportunity,
Right.
quote unquote, right?
How to make it very
Um,
difficult for another buyer to get an offer in to see the property and like these tactics to basically do that. Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't. Yeah. Is that a
yeah,
decent sized
um,
brokerage too here?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which I get to some degree also, but man, is that ethical? I don't know, right? We kind of have to always go back to what our like job is in ways that it's to help our sellers and buyers get the best deal, right? And act in a way that's cooperative with the other agents to get to like a happy medium there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
and
not
it's
a,
just
there's not a,
it's
yeah, good. Sorry.
no, it's just it's tough, right? Like the experience I think about is yeah, known agent in Orange County, where we clearly had um, the highest offer, but probably a lot because my buyer wanted that listing, and again, this agent had the reputation of always kind of dual ending a deal, and so the deal became, hey, um, he asked me to lower my commission, and I said, okay, well, I'll lower it if you're lowering it for some reason, right? And he said, yes, I would lower mine as much as you lower yours. And I'm like, okay. So turned out at the end he pocketed what I lowered, right? And so that didn't feel good. And then the other experience I think about a lot of times is, when you're working with a buyer, but someone has told them that they should go directly to listing agents, right? Because that'd be the
Right.
best chance they have to like get ahead of the pack in terms of offers and incentivize the listing agent, right? So that they side with you and pick your offer, versus other ones. We know that those forces are there, although they shouldn't be there. They're there, right? And so we
Right.
always wrestle. And it's like an ironic thing, oftentimes, that the people that put us in that situation the most generally, like sometimes, are good friends or people that we have really good relationships with, but you're working with them for like a year on showing houses, show them like 100 houses, and then all of a sudden you get a call saying, hey Abe, I'm actually in escrow right now, I went straight to the listing agent on this one, but wanted to ask you, we're in this situation, I need your help, I don't know what
Right.
to
Right. They
do
want,
here, or
yeah, exactly.
they want your help,
Yeah. That's,
and and
yeah.
and, and your feedback, right? And you're like, dang, like what do I do here, right? So I think we all
Yeah.
know the
Well,
mess right there. And sorry, go ahead.
no, no, no. I was gonna say that. I mean, I think that there's two scenarios that every agent knows well in this business is that's done is there's the infuriating nature that just it's very frustrating if you feel like your clients are not getting their offer even entertained because the listing agent's cutting it out and trying to keep the deal for themselves, right? And it's a mixture of being upset and then also feeling like maybe I'm wrong, maybe they are giving you like I don't know, but I feel like I'm not getting full clarity into here, and our clients have done everything they've asked for and given a great offer. We're not hearing back, and it's a lack of communication. And then you see it, yeah, they double ended it. You're going, oh well, and it's very frustrating, and it's very and it just the sense of fairness you have as a child, like this isn't fair, right? Those kind of emotions, and just also on the business side and for your client side that this is this hurt my client. They could have had this house if it wasn't for this agent, as well as it's just not right. And then the other experience we've all probably had is when you yourself have a client that comes to you directly, that's a great offer, and there's other offers, and you feel sort of conflicted, like guilty, like I'm taking this, like if you go with that offer, that am I doing something wrong here? And it just creates a conflict. And then I guess there's a third too that we've all been through, is just having dual agency and being a transaction and having to manage that, and both parties feeling like you're on the other one's side and having to really navigate that. And it creates a lot of just stress throughout that transaction. An attorney that I knew one time said you should charge more for dual agency. A lot of times people will charge less, or do like, like do 4% if it's dual agency. It's like, no, he said you should charge more. You should charge, if you're 6%, you should charge 7% for dual agency, because all the potential lawsuit issues, how stressful the whole thing is. And you're doing the same amount of work, really, as far as you're still having to perform for both sides and do those contractual obligations. So why would you charge less, right? And I think that's why we put the dual variable rate commission in there. So we were disclosing if we're going to do something like that. But maybe, do we just get rid of it? Do we just get rid of dual agency? You can't. 9 states, I think, out of the 50 states have outlawed dual agency, right? And that's the question. As a broker, I'd love to have dual agency eliminated because of the issues that come, because of the calls I get because of those, for all 3 of those scenarios, right? As an agent, though, I could see like, well, as long as it's done fairly, that's an opportunity for me to make a little more money, or it's also sometimes just naturally happens, right? But I think, but I think, so I get both sides of that, but I do think the way to solve some of these issues could be to eliminate dual agency. But then robbers are going to be robbers. It's always the cops and robbers, right? People that once there's a new law, they figure out a way to break it. I get that. So it's never going to be perfect, but the dual agency elimination would at least make it to where it'd be a lot harder. You'd have to do a lot more maneuvering. You'd have to get another agent involved. Once you have a crime with 2 people, right, there's more shakiness in that crime, right? So maybe that's the solution, right? That at least make them more vulnerable to getting caught by doing it wrong, by having to involve another person.
Yeah, we even talked about dual agency, or eliminating dual agency, meaning also that agents within a certain broker, the same brokerage, can't do the deal together, right?
Well,
so there's no collusion there or whatnot, right? Which has pros and cons too. For guys like us who are growing, we're not big 60,000 agent brokerage. That sounds great to us, because maybe less people will want to work all together at 60,000, so that they can do more deals together, being at different brokerages. But yeah, there's no perfect solution here. It feels like you're saying, crooks will be crooks, right? And again, what could you and I do, Matt, like on this? And it's precisely what I think we're trying to do is really teach agents to do the right thing, right? To rely on that and bank on that, right? You and I have been through enough lawsuits or threat of lawsuits or issues on deals where there was dual agency, and just all the different things that happen even after the deal's done, right? I remember sitting down with a broker nearby who had a home flipper in his agent mix, and that home flipper would renovate the home. They'd be the principal on the deal, and then they would list the property, and then they would sometimes get the buyer for the property all in one swoop, right? Which sounds awesome. There's probably tons of
keep it all in.
Keep it all in house. But then he was like lamenting about how often or how many times there was issues that came back, right, from that deal or those deals. And it was just like so hairy. They had just let go of the agents, right? So yeah, I guess it's not really a perfect solution. And the best thing you and I can do is keep teaching people to do the right thing here, and for people to seek representation, because it's important for you to be represented the right way, right? And for someone to fight for your case and fight on your behalf, like in a deal, and negotiate well for you and all that. And so, I don't know. I don't know what the perfect solution is here, but I could see a lot of benefit in eliminating dual agency. Absolutely, I can see that. but I also see like, man, there are those deals where, man, this listing is really hard to sell. No one wants to buy it, and I did the
Right.
legwork. I advertised it. I found the buyer, the perfect buyer, myself. And are you telling me now that I can't earn the full commission after having done all that hard work and you know and
Right.
doing it the right way? And so I think about those agents, and that's a real scenario, right? A lot of times, and it's hard. And so, and the best thing we can do is just get people to stop being crooks, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Yeah. Well,
Um, yeah.
there you go. It was solve all the world's problems. And then no more. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Is it too
Yeah.
idealistic to
Yeah.
think that? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
No, no. I
Um,
think I just the thing is, well, it reminds me like Crooks. When you remember short sales, right? Banks wouldn't let you double end a short sale, right, during that era. So what agents would do is just refer it to their friend in the office to represent the buyer, right? And that was going on a lot. Yeah. So I think that there'll be people that do that. So I think if it's outside the office, then and someone will just find a friend that's at another brokerage and they'll work something out there too. So I think there's a lot of um, and maybe you can eliminate that there can't be a referral fee even to the listing agent, right? So they can't even get a referral fee by referring it out, and then they have to do something under so people will figure something out. But at least if you make someone go through that sort of a hoop, at least it eliminates some of it. I think if you did that, I just think it's just yeah, you're right. Are the do the downside of eliminating dual agency outweigh? So I think it needs more search. I think this. I think it would do nothing to hurt the average agent if we eliminated dual agency. I think that yes, we can all think back like maybe there's one time you made a little more money because of that, but I don't think anybody that's like a very hardworking, honest agent thinks that's the way to make more money is to get dual agency, right? I think it's go get more business, go get more listings, go get more buyers. I don't think it's, hey, I make my money through dual agency. If you have that business model, you're probably not serving your clients well, right? So I think it really wouldn't hurt the average agent that much as it might help clean up the industry. So I think it would actually, I'm not saying I'm taking a firm stance on this, but I could see that it could be actually a pretty good move if we did it in California. And maybe nationally, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I definitely think that the clear cooperation policy definitely needs to be figured out. Like, how is this forcing people more into the shadows? Like, are we actually creating a whole market now for exclusive brokerage only listings? Because that's the loophole that they can use to not cooperate, and that's the problem. As well as these antitrust lawsuits that are also chipping away at the fabric of our tradition of cooperating with other brokerages and working with each other. So it's kind of has probably some pretty big backfires actually towards what it's intended for. So yeah, we'll have to see. But anyhow, well, I think we've got so what about Inman? Anything else that you took away from anything that you've heard from Inman, the conference going on in Las Vegas right now? I think it's over now, but
yeah, no, just it's exciting. I know we wanted to talk about this a little bit, but I think there's a lot of innovation happening, which is awesome. I think there was a company that uses AI to tag photos and whatnot, and the
oh yeah,
implications
yeah,
there in the industry for us, which I thought was really cool. And then, you know, um, big companies like Real Broker Technology, winning Brokerage of the Year, and they've had some tremendous growth. And when I know we were going to talk about that a little bit, and the structures they employ to kind of get to that point, and
right,
how
right,
we feel
right,
about them
right,
and whatnot. We'll say that for
yeah,
another topic, but yeah, just a lot of things happening in the street. It's an exciting time to be in real estate. It's a challenging time as well, right? And I think, yeah, again, that takeaway I had from that one quote about being more human was kind of the overall thing for me. And it's something I'd probably, again, like admonish our agents to really think about, and becoming more human, becoming a better human, deepening relationships, being a good friend, like these very like basic principles, right? I know I'm not saying like, hey, how do you win more listings or whatever, but I promise you, like those things help you succeed, right, and get more listings or be better at your job. So
right.
that was my big takeaway. I think from what they were discussing.
Well, it's interesting,
How about you,
that
man?
no, no, yeah, no, it's the structure you're talking about. One of the things I will say is that the 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 peer agent being one of the sole source of another agent's sort of advice, I think, or the advice they're getting from that agent. That's one of the issues, is that that's part of the tactical driven nature, right? That's the part of the tactics. How do I do this? Oh, here's what I do. Here's what I do. Here's what I do. But the wisdom, I think, of leadership from experience and people that are kind of seeing things over the trees and seeing like the bigger picture, can help you stay out of some of the distractions of these jumping from tactic to tactic, and really help you focus on developing yourself as a human and who you could become, and for the long term of your business and the long term of your life trajectory, rather than the short term tactic driven nature that sometimes, if you put a bunch of people that are the agents in the room talking to each other, sometimes they're missing out on some of the people that are maybe seeing things from a different perspective, a vantage point that can really help them in their careers. And I think that's where we're seeing, is that there's a lot of right now peer-to-peer leadership where agents are telling agents what to do, and this worked for me, and it's causing a lot of distraction. And I think that's one of the side effects of what we're, these kind of business models that are happening, is that there's a lot of, I've watched YouTube videos where agents are actually saying things that are actually unethical and actually violations of both the DRE here as well as the board, and they're giving advice to other agents to do these things. And so I think that there's a need for a broker role in our industry, and there's a need for leadership. I think there's more and more of a void for leadership and broker experience and broker perspective, I think, on our industry. And I feel like that these models have sort of undermined that a little bit. And I think that maybe that's the takeaway, that if people could have this self-awareness and wisdom as agents to realize, let's keep these people a part of our ecosystem, the brokers. And I'm not saying that selfishly or any, I just think I watch it as being someone who's been a realtor, who understands the realtor perspective very well when I was a realtor, full-time only. And then as a broker and being very close with my agents, being very close, I think having very trusting relationships, really caring about them. And I think they know that I care about them, and I'm not looking to serve myself and my advice with them. But I do think that there's sometimes, if our industry gets taken over by people who don't have necessarily a length of experience of the governance side of things, and how things can go wrong in court and go wrong in different ways for the industry, as well as having disruptors come in and taking a large sort of market share because we're not minding some of the more fundamental frameworks that we need to keep and protect, right? We can definitely get in trouble. So anyhow, just that's what my takeaway is from the thing, like hearing these brokerage models that are growing in certain ways, and as well as like seeing the distractions caused by AI and these technology things that also sometimes distract us from the core principle, just being human, taking care of our customers well. I hope we can stay focused on that, of some more of the wisdom around our industry and our business and the traditions and why they're there. And so anyhow, that's my takeaway from sort of this culmination of what we've been talking about, relationships, seeing what's happening at Inman, and how do we filter that through our leadership. I think that's where we need to stay focused. Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah. Awesome. One thing before we end, Matt.
Yeah.
You didn't explain what bottle rocket is.
There you go. Well, yeah. So there's a director, some of you might know, Wes Anderson, who's really become popular for his aesthetic, right? Like his the cinematography and sort of the style of his direct. I think on Instagram recently there was people doing these Wes Anderson reels they were doing, like in the style of Wes Anderson. And Bottle Rocket was his first movie that came out. And I literally saw this. It sounds crazy, but I don't know, it was in my early 20s. And I saw it 7 times in the theater because I insisted on taking everybody I knew that would listen to go with me. I'd take them. Let's go see it. I was just taking people to go see it. And the thing about it was, it wasn't part of his aesthetic, wasn't there yet. It wasn't fully developed. Like now you can just see a Wes Anderson movie. You know what it is. It's Wes Anderson because his style, his aesthetic is so clear, and so it's really his calling card, right? But anyway, but before that, it was really about the kind of there's more to Wes Anderson, that there's these themes of just kind of these whimsical themes of just like the humanityness and kind of a real light take on it, and just kind of like what drives us and that. And so Bottle Rocket to me was just like the quintessential of that theme of just like the absurd hero, almost like an anti-hero, absurd, the way they approach things, the way they look at things, but kind of reflecting that kind of absurdity and all. So anyway, that's the movie Bottle Rocket. I recommend to anybody if you could take it, but it really definitely made an impression on me. So there you have it.
That's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So, on that note.
Yeah. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in that you're here. We'll be back in another episode soon. And yeah, take care. Have a good rest of your week and weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Have a great weekend. No,
Okay.
have a
Hang
great
on.
weekend. Cool.
All right. Thanks. All right.